They say the simplest seed often hides the greatest tree, and the villagers loved to ask why a single child would sit and hum beside an old practice wheel day after day. So the tale begins with a question that feels like a riddle. Can steady smallness become something magnificent? The boy listened, and the village watched, hinting that curiosity opens a path. He was called Eli, a boy with steady hands and an appetite for small things. He did not rush to craft grand pieces or parade great works, but returned each morning to the same basic wheel, to shape the same small clay cup until his fingers knew its curve like a song. The pattern seemed trivial, but something in him felt called to repeat. Around him, others sought quick renown, traders who polished new wares, apprentices chasing the master's fame, and neighbors who measured success by visible triumphs. They urged him to learn a famous flourish or to join the grand workshops, believing speed equaled worth. Eli heard them, and the air filled with a restless expectation. An old potter who had learned by seasons and storms noticed Eli and offered a single line of counsel. "Master, the beginning and the end will bow to you." The words were simple and weighty, and Eli folded them into his quiet routine, feeling a seed take root in patient soil. Eli's curiosity was not a loud flame, but a steady ember. He began to test small variations, pressure of thumb, angle of clay, the breath between movements, treating each attempt as a lesson rather than a verdict on his worth. Night after night, he repeated the smallest basics until the motions carried memory, and by then, a quiet patience had become his companion. Soon, whispers arrived in the form of travelers who boasted of quick methods and grand results, promising that a single dramatic movement could win the eye of the market, and that practice was a quaint relic. Eli felt the pull of their bright words and the ache to be seen, and the old ember of impatience flickered inside him. One afternoon, a contest was announced, an open display of skill where showy pieces earned praise and coin, and the village prepared to be dazzled. Many urged Eli to abandon his steady cups and make something grand, insisting that a single brilliant gesture would change his life. He stood at the wheel and felt two roads within him. In the hush before the contest, Eli tried a flourish he had never perfected, chasing the applause he imagined. The clay wavered, the cup collapsed, and the crowd sighed with disappointment, not mercy. The failure stung, and for the first time he understood how haste can hollow skill. So he retreated in silence to the wheel, where true work lived. After the contest, some spoke kindly, others scolded him for wasting a chance, and Eli felt doubt gather like storm clouds. He questioned whether persistence in basics was cowardice rather than craft. He sat by the well again, wondering if the old mentor's counsel was an excuse or a map. Rather than resolve that day, he returned to his cups and began again, not to erase the mistake, but to learn from its echo, tracing where tension had crept into his hands and where attention had drifted. The small work required no applause, only honesty, and in that honesty he found a stubborn sort of clarity. It is told that failures teach more than triumphs when one is willing to sit with them, and Eli's sorrow became a teacher that showed him where his technique was thin and where his patience lacked foundation. That evening, he vowed to patch his skill, stitch by stitch, understanding that haste had cost him more than applause. It had robbed him of craft's slow accumulation. Eli found a rhythm that did not seek haste. He began to break tasks into the most basic movements and practiced each until it could be repeated in sleep, feeling his breath measure time as much as the day. He kept a calm ledger in his mind of what he had done and why, and slowly the work changed from core to right. Weeks became months, and each day offered a small victory, a curve that held, a lip that finished true. And these tiny successes accumulated like careful stones, forming a bridge he could cross without trepidation. The village began to notice, not in loud trumpets, but in people requesting his simple cups, because something about them felt right and steady. A sudden spring storm tested the village, and items that once looked fine crackled and failed under wet hands and chill. But Eli's cups weathered the trial. The basic strength built quietly in their making showed up when it mattered most. People began to speak softly of durability and trust, qualities that come not from flash, but from steady making. As seasons turned, neighbors asked Eli to show them the basic movements he kept returning to, not to copy his cups, but to learn steadiness of hand and clarity of mind. He found himself teaching the unadorned actions that once felt too small to matter. In sharing, he saw how fundamentals spread quiet competence like ripples. There were moments when old temptations returned an offer of sudden wealth for a flashy commission, or the itch to race to the next skill, and each time Eli measured the pole against the long months he had invested in basics, choosing patience more often than not. His choices accumulated into a reputation that attracted those who valued substance over spectacle. Years later, it is told, travelers would seek the boy who kept returning to basics and leave with a cup that felt like a steady promise, and the praise that came was calm and certain rather than loud and fleeting. The boy had become a man shaped by repeated small acts, and the village learned to value the slow craft of beginnings. In a gentle gathering to celebrate a harvest, the old mentor asked Eli to show how he made his simplest cup, not to marvel, but to reveal the method. The demonstration was plain breath, angle, steady thumb, and each movement was both answer and invitation to those who watched. The crowd's silence became its own kind of applause, for they recognized something true. Some say the power of small things is not in their size, but in what they teach about patience, discipline, and integrity. Eli's cups were reminders that fundamentals compound like seasons, and that skill built slowly resists the storms of fate. With that understanding, the village learned to be less dazzled by flash and more attentive to the bedrock beneath the house. The parable concludes, a boy who practiced basics became exceptional not by chasing glory, but by honoring the beginning over and over until mastery arrived like morning light. Out of steady repetition came trust, resilience, and time-tested value. The financial lesson is clear: invest in fundamentals. Be patient, and your small, consistent actions will grow into lasting wealth and security.